So then, for today's video, I will be putting my laptop to its paces. Basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be benchmarking my laptop to see how powerful it is compared to my main system up here. And the reason why I'm doing this is because, as you may know from the last video I did on this laptop, it's actually, it could potentially be more powerful than my main system. The reason for this is because this thing comes with an Intel Core i5 11th gen, whereas the main system only has a i3 10th gen. Both systems have 16 gigabytes of DDR4. They both have NVMe SSDs as their boot drives. But this is where things get a little bit interesting. As I said, the CPU difference, but also in terms of graphics performance, because as you may know, my main system over there, that has a AMD RX 580 graphics card. It's only a 4 gig card, but it's still a pretty powerful graphics card. Whereas the laptop here, this has something quite interesting. This has as I said, an 11th gen Core i5. So this was basically the 11th gen Intel microprocessors were the first processors to come with this Intel Iris graphics. So basically what that is, it's basically what Intel have done is they have taken the integrated graphics of, like, say, their CPUs, and they've sort of put it onto a separate chip. But they're both on the same package, but they're on a separate chip. So you could say that it's sort of like a hybrid between discrete graphics and also integrated graphics. So it's like a hybrid between the both, because even though it's a separate GPU die on the package, it's still sharing system memory, whereas a discrete GPU has its own memory. So even though they are sharing memory, it's still separate from the CPU. So it'd be interesting to see how both of these machines perform. Anyway, enough rambling on. Let's see how they perform. Now then, first up is the laptop, which I will now run. I will first do Cinebench, which will benchmark our CPU, and then we'll do Heaven Benchmark, which will benchmark our GPU. So let's get on with Cinebench. Might turn down the screen a bit so it's not glaring as much on me. That's better. So then, I have done a benchmark on this before, but it'd be interesting to do it again, because it was actually getting interrupted because for whatever reason the laptop kept going into sleep mode, but hopefully it and also I had it in blimmin' what do you call it, like power efficiency mode. It's already starting to benchmark already, but I'll just say this, it was in power efficiency mode and it kept going into sleep mode, so I had to adjust those settings. So let the benchmark commence. then, so our benchmark is complete, and let's check our score. So I think that was from when it had problems where it was kept going into sleep mode and was always blimmin' getting interrupted and stuff. So this is our current score. So we got a score of 192. Now, obviously it's not as powerful as a blimmin' i7 or Apple or blimmin' Ryzen's or whatever. There's no way it's as powerful as those, but you know what you expect is a laptop. Let's feel the temperatures actually. It's not too bad actually, the temperatures. So now then. So what I want to do is I want to keep a track of all the benchmarks I've done, which is save them on this disk. But I don't know if Cinebench allows you to save your results, which by the looks of things unfortunately it doesn't. So hopefully it'll remember the last score. I mean it did when I last tested it. So let's now move on to our GPU benchmark, which is the Heaven benchmark. So then, do we enable high quality, DirectX 11, anti-aliasing off, run it full screen? I tell you what, we'll use the extreme preset on both computers, so then we know that it's trying its best basically. Now it's probably going to struggle with this, or blimmin'. Actually, I don't know if extreme lets you run it at full screen. I don't know. We'll just run it like that, I suppose. Fans are spinning up. It's obviously oh yes, and we got the music, haven't we? I'll just mute that for the time being, if I can. There we go. So I think what we'll do is we'll start the benchmark, and then we'll see. Well, we're getting like 20 FPS, which, to be honest, isn't that brilliant. I mean, you can see it's chugging along a bit, but we'll run the benchmark and see what we get. Okay then, so the benchmark is complete and we have a score of a very, like, it's quite a low score of 358 points, but I mean, what do you expect? It's a laptop really with semi-integrated graphics, but I think it could have done better. It could have done better, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to save the results on here. So we're going to save into A drive. Hold on, let's have a look. Right. So I guess we'll call this okay, so now we can save that onto disk. So that should have saved. So what we can do now is we can just quit the program and let's feel how hot the laptop is. It's a little bit warmer with the GPU benchmarks, I've noticed. So then, we can now move on to the desktop computer. Okay, so now it is time to benchmark the main PC, which is the system that, you know, I always use. So we're going to see if that laptop that we just tested is more powerful than a pre-built custom PC, which I have down there. And we shall see if it's actually just as powerful. If not, I mean, like, it's probably got a more powerful graphics card, but probably a weaker CPU, because I said that's got an i3, the laptop's got an i5. But the thing is, though, it's a desktop i3, which runs at a higher frequency, but the laptop runs at a lower frequency. So we shall see when we run our benchmarks. So we'll be running Cinebench now. Probably going to take a little bit more time to load because it's actually loading. I actually installed Cinebench on the 1TB hard drive as opposed to the SSD. Okay, let's start the CPU multi-core. Like I said, I'm interested to see how this pans out because then, so the render is complete. I do apologise for the interruption during the blimmin' render sequence there. Also got a Discord message, how helpful. But the render's finished, and funnily enough, I think it was actually quicker than it was on the laptop, and I actually think it's actually done better than the laptop, to be honest, because if I grab the laptop and unfortunately you cannot save these benchmarks to disk like you can with blimmin' the Heaven benchmark, but the laptop scored 192 points during its render, whereas the desktop scored 273. Now that is quite a substantial performance, considering that it's an i3, even of a previous generation. But yes, as I said, you can't blimmin' save to disk, so we're going to move on to Heaven benchmark. So now, this will be interesting because there's a much more powerful GPU in this. So we shall run it. Much more smoother than what it was on the laptop. I'm getting a more consistent FPS this time. So what we're going to do is we're going to benchmark now. So our benchmark is complete, and from the score we've got there, as you can see, it's a much higher score, but I believe I already have a save on here, so we I think we can do a summary for this on I will go to the computer and do a screen recording, and I'll show you once I have put this into the computer. So we'll go to the computer and see the conclusion to this test. Computer, we can now check the results to see which computer performed better. So we can go to the benchmark disk, and we have, this is the laptop, so we'll check that first, see how well that did. This is the Heaven benchmark score, by the way, and that scored 358 on the Lifebook, so that has a Core i5-1135 G7 with Intel Iris Xe graphics, with I think only 1 GB of VRAM, so I think that kind of let it down a bit there with only 1 GB of shared memory with, at least I think it's only 1 GB, yeah. Now let's have a look at the pre-built computer, my main one. What a performance boost, 2132 points. And that is with the Core i5-10105F and the Radeon RX 580 with 4 GB of VRAM, and you can see the performance boost. So after doing the benchmarks, we have concluded that it's quite surprising actually. I mean, in a way it isn't, but it is at the same time, because as I said, the laptop has an 11th gen i5, the desktop has a 10th gen i3, and the desktop actually performed better than the laptop did. I mean, I can understand that because the laptop actually runs at a lower frequency than what the desktop does, so CPU frequency really does matter in terms of performance and benchmarking, or even doing any other day-to-day tasks. It can really, I mean, if you had the ability to overclock a laptop, that probably perform a lot better if it was overclocked. But put it this way, it's not recommended to overclock a laptop because of like overheating and also power draw and stuff like that. But also graphics, I mean, graphics isn't surprising because also 1 GB of VRAM versus 4 GB of VRAM is an excellent performance boost. I mean, even 4 GB of VRAM isn't even is below average these days, because graphics cards either have 8 or even 16 GB of VRAM. But all in all, it just goes to show that a laptop is, I mean, laptops have come a long way. The Vio that I used to have, you know, it was okay, but that's definitely, this thing definitely beats the Vio. But my desktop is actually more powerful than any laptop that I've ever owned. So yeah, it just goes to show that desktops are actually more powerful than laptops. Even if a laptop says that it's got an i5, it's an i3, a desktop i3 outperforms a laptop i5, which, yeah, if you get a laptop thinking that it's got an i5, then it's probably about as good as a desktop Pentium. So yeah, that will be it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.